Lesson 8B, we're going to look at testing the difference between two means. Okay, so we just did testing the difference between two proportions. And so for testing between two means, the formulas and everything are going to change a little bit, but the process is going to stay the same. So, things that we still need to find: standard error and the standardized test statistic. So standard error, all right, our symbol here is going to be standard deviation of x1 minus x2. So it's our standard error for a two-sample mean test, okay? And the formula is we're going to do S1 squared over N1 plus S2 squared over N2, and we're going to take the square root of that whole thing. All right, and I gave you, again, a key down here for what the different symbols mean. All right, so S1 and S2 are standard deviations for each sample, again, given to you in the problem. N1 and N2 is our sample size for each sample. Okay, and then our standardized test statistic, that's going to be our z-score again. All right, so everything we've done so far is a z-test. Okay, and that is going to be x1 minus x2 because we're testing the difference between two means. And we're going to put that over our standard error. All right, and that is going to be our z-score. Same rules apply when we go to get p-values. If your z-score is negative, you can take that number straight from the table. If your z-score is positive, then you would have to do 1 minus that number from the table. So I will go through an example with you guys. Here we have some information about salaries for public school teachers in two different states, Georgia and Ohio. So we took a survey of 200 teachers in each state. We got their average salary and the standard deviation, and we're looking, is there enough evidence to conclude that the mean salary for teachers in Ohio is higher than teachers in Georgia? Okay, so here's our steps. Same process as last unit, it's just this time we're testing means instead of proportions. So null and alternative hypothesis. So our null hypothesis, again, is going to be that the difference between the two means is 0. All right, we're assuming that there is no difference between the two means, and then we're going to test to see whether that is true. All right, our alternative hypothesis is going to be that mean 1 minus mean 2 is less than 0, okay? Because I'm just going, this is sample 1 and this is sample 2. So I'm assuming that Georgia is going to be smaller than Ohio. So mean 1 minus mean 2 would be less than 0. Okay, level of significance. I don't see it listed here, so I'm going to say 0.05. That's usually a general rule that if you don't see one in a problem, we assume it's 0.05. I will make sure that anything I give you has it listed. Okay, standard error. All right, so that is our formula. All right, sigma x1 minus x2, and that is equal to S1 squared over N1 plus S2 squared over N2, and we're taking the square root. So standard deviation 1 from Georgia was 69.35, and that is going to be squared over the sample size of 200. Standard deviation for my second sample, which is Ohio, is 65.84 squared over 200, and then we're taking the square root of that whole thing. And when I do all of that math, I get 676.1778. Just as a general rule, we're going to go 4 decimal places unless I tell you otherwise. Okay, so that is my standard error. So my z-score then is going to be x1. So the mean for Georgia was 49,900 minus x2. In Ohio, it was 51,900 divided by my standard error. Again, if you're putting this in your calculator all at once, we need parentheses there. Okay, so my z-score is negative 2.96. All right, this is a negative z-score, so that means when I go to my table, I can just take the probability straight from the table. So my p-value is going to be 0.0015. That comes from the z-table. that is less than my alpha of 0.05. So I am going to reject the null hypothesis, okay? And then same as before, you can use this little template to write your one-sentence conclusion. So we reject the null hypothesis because the p-value is less than alpha. So there is enough evidence to say that the mean salary in Ohio is higher than in Georgia. And I'm not going to take the time to write all of that out because you guys don't need to watch me write. But there is enough evidence because we reject our null hypothesis. Okay, so very similar to what we were doing last time. Okay, just the formula changes a little bit, so make sure you have those formulas for standard error, and you should be good to go.